NewsMaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on NewsMaker Sunday. As kind of new at the parenting game, not that new, but my kids, oldest kids, my twin boys are 6. And you learn a lot along the way. And you learn as they get older, the problems get bigger. There are problems when they're little, but as they get bigger, the problems just get bigger. And you've got to deal with this stuff. And we're going to talk about that as we kick off the school year all across the valley. Joining us this week on NewsMaker Sunday is Kimberly Cabral. She's the founder of MASK. That is Mother's Awareness on School-Age Kids. And we'll get into what this is all about. But if you're a parent, you're going to get something out of this program. And joining us as well is Scottsdale Assistant Chief of Police, John Cocca. Thanks to both of you for being here.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
You've got how many kids?
5.
5 kids?
5. How
did you decide to start this nonprofit, MASK? And again, it's Mother's Awareness on School-Age Kids.
Well, what happened was I was the stay-at-home mom and involved parent, you know, in the school helping out, PTO, the whole thing, parenting classes. And as my older son was going into middle school, I started to want to talk about some things that I thought would be relevant to middle school age kids. And what happened was one day in the car when I brought up a conversation, it stemmed an hour-and-a-half conversation about all these different behaviors that were happening now, well then in elementary school. Shocked as I was, you know, I sat back and listened and then regrouped after and said, oh my gosh, here I am, a parent that has the time and resources, and here I knew nothing. So I started investigating, talking to police departments, counselors, and it opened up a world to me that I didn't know. Things that
what was the issue that came up in the car that day? Do you remember?
The issue was I was talking to him and just said, listen, when I was your age, kids were talking about sex. Have you heard anything? And then so it opened up. And then it also opened up to where kids were sniffing Purell, smoking pot. And here we're in a good neighborhood, and you know, I really had my blinders on. And so after I did some research and found out that kids can be prosecuted as young as age 8 for things, I was just blown away by it.
It's a great point. And John, you know, and you just mentioned it, living in a nice area, you're in Scottsdale. It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on your socioeconomic status, where you happen to live, what kind of job you are. There are all these pressures, no matter what family you're in.
Do you think, having worked in Scottsdale for a number of years now, how many years have you been?
Coming up on my 27th.
Congratulations. Okay. That you may even have deeper problems in some of the more affluent neighborhoods?
I think that it's hidden better. I think that it's, most people, they don't like to talk about it. They like to put, for lack of a better term, a mask on and try and cover up as opposed to talking about their issues or going to a counselor or going to some place where they can obtain some professional help or something along those lines.
We're going to talk today about several topics that affect kids and families, cyberbullying, certainly drugs and alcohol, some of the issues that come up in terms of sex with young people. I mean, I kind of laugh because I hear my parents' tapes going in my head sometimes. And when we were growing up, the big thing was, well, TV is contaminating these kids. Now, this generation, it's the internet and access to the internet. So every generation kind of has its cross to bear. Do you honestly think that it's more difficult raising kids now than it was 20 years ago?
Absolutely. I think there's so many more pressures on both sides. You know, we have the parents that are trying, they're working. A lot of parents, both parents are working now. There's so much more demands for kids as far as homework, sports, the activities. And so just trying to be a parent raising your kids without dealing with all this other stuff, it's hard. And so as technology changes and as more things are out there and more trends that are coming out, it's hard to keep up with everything. And it's so important to educate kids as they grow on topics and not just have topic conversations, you know, when drugs or when they're exposed to it.
We're looking at a picture of Facebook here. How much has Facebook changed the whole landscape?
Oh my, I mean, and the thing is, I try to look at the positives as well as these things, because Facebook, so many kids are on there, they're talking, they can be talking positive for, you know, reinforcing good things too. But the whole Facebook technology, social media, it's really given them a platform to pretty much say whatever they want to. And because they're not in front of somebody, they're not face to face. So having that screen in front of them really exposes more.
So as a parent, what is the key here? Complete monitoring of what they're doing, and you've got to be able to get into their Facebook to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
in a sense, is it a great tool to get a real clue on what's going on with your kid, really what's going on with your kid?
I think so. I mean, the Facebook, you know, I think for parents it's important to understand how it works first before they give it to their kids. Every family is going to have their own rules and beliefs and what fits for them. So as long as they have a plan set forth before they give their child an adult tool, and making sure they have their passwords, you know, email, all of that. They need to be able to get into it. But then it also gives a parent a great opportunity to see all the friends that they are interacting with, what they're saying, what they're doing, because kids want to post everything they do and say. So it becomes a great informative, you know,
I laugh about that because I wake up the other day and my 7-year-olds have gotten onto my iPhone. There's no password on there yet. Now there is.
Right.
And they're looking up Iron Man videos. They figured out on Google how to find Iron Man videos. Well, Google, obviously, you're one click away from disaster. So we immediately shut that down. But I'm laughing because you know the old criminal adage, you build a 10-foot wall, they build an 11-foot ladder.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the way it is with kids. Now with Facebook, John, are you guys also, as a police agency, going in and kind of getting a sense of what's going on in some of these schools? And does it give you some good intel?
Well, it definitely gives us some good intel. Obviously, we use some investigative techniques to acquire some information. Believe it or not, sometimes criminals aren't the smartest and they post some things on Facebook. You can get a lot of incriminating information off of Facebook. But like Kimberly said, there's a lot of good that happens on Facebook also, so it's not all bad.
I'm still wrestling with that one, on balance, whether it's been a good thing or a bad thing.
I think one thing to remember is, you know, people in their mid-30s to 40s, my age, we did not grow up with computers. And if you were born in the early 80s to late 80s, it's like a second language
that's exactly
to everybody.
Right.
It might as well speak another language. And if we don't know how to speak that language as parents or professionals, then we're going to be behind the curve and we're not going to catch some things that we need to catch, or things we need to be aware of. This
cyberbullying thing is a real problem, isn't it? Because again, you can say whatever you want, you can get it out there, and obviously pictures, sexting, all this kinds of stuff can lead to real problems.
Right. Cyberbullying is, I mean, bullying has always been around, and this is, you know, technology has just escalated it and brought it. It used to just happen in the playground. Now it's in people's homes, and the kids can't get away from it, and they're either going to be glued to the computer screen to see what's being posted about them, or they're just going to completely turn it off. But psychologically, you know, it's hard because for kids, the bully, they could see. Sometimes they don't know who's bullying them online.
That's exactly right.
So to walk into school and, you know, to wonder what people, who's saying it, could be your best friend.
And the cell phone, obviously. You've got a camera, a movie camera, you've got instant access, and a lot of unseemly stuff can end up there.
And I think the biggest thing that we can help educate parents on is the whole, if you give your child an adult tool, be sure you know how to use it, and be sure you talk with them and let them know what the consequences can be. You know, there's so many people getting their children's cell phones 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade. Do they really need it? Is it more of a convenience tool for the parent, or is it more of a hazard for the kid? So I think we just have to think about that before we give our children things. You know, like you said, the phone. I had the same thing just happen with my daughter who's 7. She took it, I thought she was calling somebody, and then pretty soon she's on Facebook posting pictures. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so for parents, I mean, they have to, you know, sometimes we think, oh, we don't have to talk to them until they're older about this. this generation coming up is even more, savvier than before.
Okay, about the sex talk. You encountered this at 6th grade with your son.
Right.
How soon should you have started talking about it?
You know what? That whole conversation and the evolution of mask has really got me thinking and made me a better parent. You know, before I waited to talk to him till 6th grade, I have those talks to my daughter now, who is 7, but it's age appropriate.
Right.
So it's that whole mentality of education as they grow on a variety of topics. I talk to my daughter now about, I started in kindergarten about bullying because it happens. You know, it happens young. Drugs today look like candy. You know, we have to educate our children on what they look for. So maybe they're thinking they're taking a candy from their friend, but maybe that friend had a brother or sister at home that they took it from thinking it's candy and now passing it out at school. So it's just a whole different way of thinking in today and, raising kids.
Let me ask you something about so-called bad kids, who end up going down a criminal track. Have you honestly run across, and it's hard to know what's going on inside a family.
Right.
Have you run across kids who turn out to be bad kids and things at home are actually really good?
Absolutely.
You have?
Absolutely. We've run into fantastic parents. They are trying the best they can. You know, as we know, there's no magic book that tells you how to parent. And
I wish there was.
And they're, yeah, no kidding. And they want to do everything possible to help out their young teen or teenager. And but these kids have their own personality. They have their own decision-making process, and sometimes that's tough to wrap yourself all around that and get control of that. So there's been just dozens and dozens of excellent parents that have run into those problems.
Your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's hard to pinpoint it, I think for kids, the biggest thing that is missing is communication with their parents. I think that's just a huge part of it. I think a lot of parents think their older kid maybe doesn't want to talk about things, and now it's really opened and verified for us as an organization, because with our magazine we actually go out to kids, high schools, and have them write about a subject, and they want to talk. But I think there's that language barrier between parents and kids, and I think sometimes parents maybe not truly validate what their kids are going through.
Peer group, you hear a lot if a kid goes down a wrong track. You hear a lot, well, they fell in with the wrong crowd. That's a common refrain. Right. Is it that simple? If the parents are engaged, can you head off who their friends are if you disapprove?
I think as parents we have to be their parents and not their friends. And if we see,
that's a great point.
Put it this way, if when you're raising your little ones, they go to touch the stove, you get them away from that. I think that mentality as parents, we need to keep that as they grow. And if they're going down a wrong track, bring them back. I mean, we are their parents. They can't go and do whatever they want. And we have the power to make the changes if we want to do it, but it's hard.
You talk about this stuff happening early, the bullying. One of my sons encountered this in kindergarten. He got glasses, he came to school, and a kid in the class said, "I don't like your glasses," pulled him off him and crushed him, stepped on him. And my son was so blown away. He didn't know what was going on. He'd never really encountered anybody doing something like that to him. So this created a huge drama, because he just didn't understand where this was coming from. And so you talk about it at an early age, even in kindergarten, you start getting this kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't think I would have started talking to my younger, we have them the same age, if it wasn't for me, getting this started. But, in kindergarten, and to this day, at night, we role play. Like, Mom, what would you do if so-and-so? So it's about preparing them to recognize what it looks like and what they can do if it happens to them. And you have to strengthen it. It's an ongoing thing. It's not just one talk.
Yeah, and your connection with the group?
My connection is I'm on the board. Kimberly asked me to be on the board. We've actually, our kids grew up together. So we were in the same neighborhood when kids went to the same grade school, same high school, so we've known each other for a while.
Let me pull, I'm going to pull a copy here. I'm going to go out of frame here. Is this the most recent?
No, that was our premiere, our launch. We started this publication because, you know, we go out as an organization and talk with kids all day long. We can get to them. We're in schools. Our programs we promote free for the community. But we believe as an organization, it's not just about educating the kids, it's about educating the parents.
Right.
So we're trying to bridge the gap between parents and kids and get them talking about this. So we came up with the concept of a quarterly publication that would encompass what we do, but put it in a more convenient form for parents.
How do you get it? How do you find it?
It's in Barnes & Noble throughout Arizona right now. You can order it online through our website, maskmatters.org.
So just Google mask and you'll come up with it probably.
Yeah, you should come up with it. And we're trying to make it the Cliff Notes of parenting for families.
It's desperately needed in the world we're living in. Kimberly Cabral, the founder of Mask, and Scottsdale Assistant Chief John Cocca with us this week on NewsMaker Sunday, talking about the dangers out there as you're raising your kids. Back in a minute on NewsMaker Sunday. Back on NewsMaker Sunday with Scottsdale Assistant Chief John Cocca and Kimberly Cabral, the founder of MASK, which stands for Mothers Awareness on School-Age Kids, founded in 2007, a nonprofit to really help educate parents and kids today on the issues out there and help both make better choices. Let's talk drugs for a minute. This is another issue that's out there. Despite our war on drugs, so-called war on drugs, the stuff's out there, it's available. But it's also in the medicine cabinet.
Right.
And we're looking at King Crypto. This is the marijuana substitute, I guess, that they were selling in the stores. This stuff is everywhere.
It's everywhere, from homes to, I mean, schoolyards to, I mean, anybody can get it, and with technology, they can get it online, you know. Advice
for parents, let's start with their own medicines.
Own medicines, lock it up. Lock it up. It's easy to do. You can call any locksmith. They'll lock up a cabinet, and I think it's just it's that important. Kids are doing it. They're doing the Sudafed. They're doing, you know, kids can overdose on Tylenol. So they got to lock it up.
What are you seeing in the schools?
Believe it or not, the pharmaceuticals are really coming into play, where the teenagers are going into their parents' medicine cabinets, and while they're at a party, it's almost a free-for-all. They throw it all into the bowl.
The fishing.
They throw it all into the bowl and then see what they get. Very, very problematic.
That is really dangerous.
Very dangerous.
You've obviously done some stories on this in your magazine, your quarterly magazine. Yeah, we our second issue, the summer issue, we dedicated to drugs because in the summer statistics it just skyrockets. So and the evolution of it, you know, from marijuana to, you know, the synthetic evolution of drugs. Parents you've talked to, what's the earliest you've seen a kid start dabbling in drugs? Oh, elementary. How about you, John?
Absolutely, elementary school.
Like, are we talking third grade?
I've never seen one in third grade. I'm sure there has been. Usually when you're getting closer to junior high, 5th or 6th grade.
With an older brother, generally?
With an older brother. Usually it started now, but you know, our generation, it was the marijuana, but now you have all the pills.
Right.
So you're seeing some dabbling and some of that happening, and up to and including marijuana and some methamphetamine. On the computer, let's talk about that just for a minute. It's such a great tool, and I'm not talking about social media now. I'm talking about using the computer to research, to learn about the world. But what do you do in terms of controls on the computer? Do you just never allow your kid to use it without you being in the same room? You don't have to go that far. I mean, every parent's going to choose what's comfortable for them. The biggest thing is to have the computer in a central location, never in their rooms, never have a phone that has that capability until they're old enough. And the trust has been established. There's settings that you can do just on your computer that the computer already comes with, and then there's also great software that's there that will monitor and limit age appropriate. You know, you can block out certain sites. The problem is,
you can do all that, and then they end up over at their friend's house where the parents are not as plugged in.
Right. Well, and that's where, you know, parents have to talk to parents. We've established a Safe Home Pledge on our website for parents to download, and it talks about all this stuff. Take the pledge. So when you talk to other parents, or questions to ask, what do you allow your child to do? You know, while these are our rules, we don't want him watching, you know, and that goes from any grade level, because it could be age-appropriate movies.
That's a tough conversation to have.
It is hard.
Because sometimes these are your friends, and you find out that they're not running as tight a ship as you are.
Right.
And you've got to have a conversation with them, and you're parenting them.
Right.
And saying, hey, listen, no SpongeBob. You know, that's not very comfortable.
Yeah, from SpongeBob to pornography. I mean, that's what we're talking about, and it's just a family, whatever families are comfortable with. It is uncomfortable to try to go to a friend and say, you know what, your child was over here, it showed my son this. It's hard, but it's a disservice if you don't.
As we go to break, do you think that in some ways, because men's role has really changed, it used to be, you know, when I was growing up, Dad went to work, Mom really handled the lion's share of raising the kids.
Right.
Dads are now having to be much more on board. So there's an opportunity there, isn't there?
Absolutely.
To have a better...
Absolutely, and I agree with Kimberly wholeheartedly. It's all about the communication with your children. And from a man's perspective and a father, you need to man up. You're not their friend, you're their father, you're their dad. You need to have some of those hard conversations. In our family, I have 2 teenagers, one just graduated from high school. I paid for their phone, which means I got to look at it anytime I wanted to. That was the rule.
Exactly. You're paying the bill.
You want a phone? I'm paying the bill.
Right.
They would just, I'd say, let me see your phone. They just hand it to me. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't smart enough to maybe delete some things that needed to be deleted.
He's also in a uniform.
But they never knew when I was going to ask for it. If I'd see it sitting on the counter, I'd go pick it up.
Yeah.
I had their passwords to everything on their computer.
They don't have full rights. They're not emancipated.
No, they're not.
Right.
And they shouldn't be. They're kids. You know, they're kids. It's our role as a parent to set the limits, and as you said, it might be uncomfortable going to other parents and saying things, but it's important for children to understand that there are rules, there are values, there are things that are good and bad, and we have to help them navigate through it.
We're going to take a break here on NewsMaker Sunday. Back with some final thoughts with Scottsdale Assistant Chief John Cocca and Kimberly Cabral, the founder of Mask Mothers Awareness on School-Age Kids. Back in a minute. Back on NewsMaker Sunday, some final thoughts from Kimberly Cabral, the founder of Mask Mothers Awareness on School-Age Kids, and John Cocca, kind enough to join us as well, Assistant Chief of Police, Scottsdale. You made a great point in the break. Have the talk, whatever this issue is, 5 years before it's actually germane to their world.
Correct.
Have the sex talk way early. Start having it.
Right. Have the drug talk. I mean, the entry drug is smoking. You can talk to kindergartners about tobacco and escalate into alcohol, to escalate into marijuana and all the other ones that go beyond that. But having the talk early, and that is really in anything in parenting. It could be, like we talked about, when they drive. Let them know your expectations, so when you get to that point, it's already there. There should be no argument, you know?
We should talk about driving, because the most dangerous time in driving is that first year you've got your license, right?
Absolutely, so much so that the legislature changed the law recently, a year or two ago, that if you're 16, you're not allowed to have anybody else in your car other than a sibling for the first 6 months.
You think that's a good move?
I think it's a great move.
What are you seeing as far as drunk driving among kids? Has it really, have we turned a corner, do you believe?
I don't think we've turned a corner. What I think we're about status quo. I think the kids have done a better job of looking out for their peers, but we still do encounter underage drinking and driving. It's mostly, though, with the 18, 19, 20-year-old crowd as opposed to the 16-year-old crowd.
Do you think we should be drug testing in schools?
I think that that's a touchy subject. You know, you have to balance that whole thing. I think when you're in extracurricular activities and the taxpayers are paying for some of the extracurricular activities, that might not be a bad idea.
Would you drug test your kids, Kimberly?
I do.
You do?
I do. And I sat down with them a year before I started doing it and just said, you know, guys, I just want to let you know our family drug tests. What does that mean? And you know, all the different ages, and it's, you know what, there's things out there that can be harmful. I just need to make sure that those aren't getting into your body. And as you get older, you might be offered drugs, and I want you to know, I want you to have an out. I want you to be able to tell your friends, blame it on me, my family drug test.
That's a great point.
I use that all the time. It's much easier for my kids to use that excuse.
I love it. Hey guys, thank you.
Hey, you know, you blame it on me.
Thank you for both being here. Very informative, and we'll see you next week on NewsMaker Sunday.
Thank you.